Welcome, everyone, to the Major Reflections podcast, the Sydney edition of 2025, the inaugural major marathon for Sydney. And I am so excited to have two of our personal best program runners that ran Sydney this year. I'd like to welcome Ayako Fackenthal. I said that right, didn't I? Fackenthal. There you go. And Chris Neal. Welcome, you guys. Appreciate you being here, and look forward to hearing your story as to how Sydney went. Ayako, I'm going to start with you first. First of all, when did you find out that you got into Sydney?
So I believe the general ballots opened up in December, and I just put in my name. I knew it was the first time it was going to be a world major. So I thought this was probably the best chance I have, because they were going to be expanding the number of people attending. So that's what I did. And I believe I found out in January that I got in. So it was great.
That's exciting.
Yes.
To actually be able to get in a ballot entry is like winning the lottery for sure. That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. And Chris, how did you get into Sydney?
My experience is very different. I was not planning on doing Sydney in 2025. I had been working with a charity called Organization for Autism Research and had signed up for Berlin and was working with them. They had a ballot that came open in early June, and they were like, "Do you want it?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So I picked that up, and I had been already training for some other things. So it was a last minute decision to go all the way to Australia. But yeah, it was just one of those very similar luck of the draws, just at the last minute.
Well, tell me more about that. Tell me about, so you're running Sydney through a charity event. So tell me more about how that process went about. So you said they had a ballot come open. Tell me more about that.
So every charity that works with Abbott and the various majors, they have a certain number of bibs that they're given for each one of the races. In this case, they had someone who was supposed to run, but then got hurt and they weren't able to run. And so that opened up a slot for someone else to come in and do that. Rather than have the bib go unused, they offer it up to the next person on their wait list. Because each of the charities usually have a relatively long wait list. So the advice for those on those wait lists, continue your training, because you never know when you're going to get the call.
That's very good advice. That's a good point. So really, you just never know if you're going to get on there. That's incredible that it worked out that way. And you weren't planning on it, but you were training and you went ahead and got in there. Now, tell me more with the charity. Are you having to raise money in order to claim that bib? How does that work?
Yeah, so my situation turned out to be even more unique. Like I said, I had been working with them, on Berlin, and we had come up, and they have most charities have a certain dollar amount per race, and every race is a little bit different based on, I think, the popularity of the race and a few other factors, a minimum amount that you're supposed to raise. So I had gotten with them with Berlin. About a month later, they had offered me Chicago, which is obviously a month later on the schedule, which I agreed to. When they then offered me New York, we started bartering for all of the majors. So getting lined up with OAR and Run for Autism to do all the majors. The one that this particular charity doesn't have, they don't have a slot in Boston. So I'm working with a different charity for that. But that put me on the fast track for, never having done a major to getting on the ballot for all of them. And so now I have all of them except Boston on my schedule, and working through that experience.
Wow. So the possibility of 7 stars in 1 year, that's incredible. How's your body holding up?
Fortunately, relatively well. I think a lot of the racing that I had been doing, and keep in mind, I'm relatively new to the whole marathon thing. I ran my first marathon in 2022. It was a rock and roll marathon in Phoenix. I then ran a second marathon later that year in my hometown of Des Moines, Iowa. The following year, I also ran 2 marathons, one in Phoenix again, and then, of course, one in your town of Oklahoma City. And then
That's where we first met.
where we first met. And things just started progressing from there. I ran 5 marathons. I think it was 5 marathons in 2024. And then I actually ran 6 marathons in the beginning of 2025. So starting to really compress the schedule and start to load up more, the body is starting to react to that and harden a bit. And we'll get into a lot of this, I'm sure. There's mental strategies, there's physical strategies, there's recovery strategies, there's all these different things that you have to go through, along with the consistency and the, piling that up. But I think there's just having that level of race schedule and training on an ongoing basis is what's put me in position to be able to do what I'm doing now.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. That brings me to my next question. Ayako, I'll throw this to you first. So in preparing for Sydney, what strategy did you use to prepare for it? And how did that go for you during the race?
So just my background too, I actually started running seriously in 2022. So this was actually my 6th marathon overall. And so I'm still, I would say, inexperienced. I'm still learning. And one of my biggest goals always is to not bonk and to be able to manage well and finish strong. So that's usually my goal. Now with Sydney, and I have actually 3 marathons coming up. Well, actually 2 more now. So 3 in the fall. Sydney, the Marine Corps, and then I have the CIM, which is my hometown. So Sydney was kind of, a little bit of a surprise. Marine Corps was, I don't know, it was just one of those things where a lot of friends were going. So I just thought, I'll go to the East Coast and visit my parents. And, that was kind of, so that's how I loaded up my schedule. And as far as training goes, I had just finished the Big Sur in the end of April, took a couple weeks break, actually hiking in Japan. And then I restarted. It was less than the 18 weeks. So I kind of had to jump in. And I followed the PB program and training. I did add some trail running in the latter parts, which I think helped me a lot in the Sydney Marathon.
How do you feel that helped you?
I think the hills running hills and doing hill repeats on the trails, for instance. I live in Sacramento, so we're running in the foothills of Sierra Nevada. So running Sydney, I just did not feel there was any hills to me. It was just, that was not the problem. I think the biggest thing with Sydney, I had read that it was the more hilliest of all the majors, although they had changed the course in 2025, so it was less so. But I knew that there was a huge decline at the beginning. And so I really thought hard about how to handle that. But I also thought, you know what? In the past, I've always tried for a negative split in my marathons. Maybe what I'll do is I will try to go a little bit more steady pace. So I wasn't as conservative. I try to be conservative with the downhills, but in the end, I wasn't conservative enough. Probably after Sydney Harbor, which I knew was a decline, I kind of forgot there was even more of the decline, another 150 feet or so. And I went out too fast in that area. So I think that I paid the price later on. By the time I got to like Centennial Park, that's like around 30 kilometers, up 18 miles or so, I ended up with a double calf cramp. And I had to, I've never had that happen before.
Oh, and that's horrible.
Yes. And I was just fortunate enough, I went into high gear of how do I manage this? Just started pulling all the salt tablets. I had the Tums for potassium and all kinds of stuff going on. And I was able to recover enough to run the last 3-4 miles pretty strong. But that hurt my time, I would say. And kind of what I was hoping for in terms of the race. But I still enjoyed the race. I mean, it was still a great experience. Yeah.
Good. Well, Chris, piggyback on that, because that is something that we have heard about Sydney is it has become known for its hills now, almost as much as New York and Boston have been. So how did you approach your training for Sydney, and did it work for you?
Well, not having run any of the other majors, I don't have it to stack up. I mean, you can compare the elevation charts with New York. And as Ayako said, it's comparable, if not a little more aggressive than New York. I think I had mentioned to you that it's similar It's probably similar to Oklahoma City, where you have hills here and there. Probably as mentioned, the start is aggressive downhill, reminded me a lot of St. George Marathon with some aggressive downhill. There's the bridge and a few other places where, you recover and you have some uphills. I think the longest stretch is, what would you say, probably around 15 to 20 kilometers, where it's a steady grade all the way to a turnaround. And so I think that I'm at a supreme disadvantage in Phoenix. We're pretty much flatland unless I go look for trails. So I live in Chandler, Arizona, which everything is like super flat.
Yes.
It's not net downhill here. It's really just flat. So I have to go, and there's a few spots around here. I try and hit the trails. I wasn't going to be overly concerned about it. It worked out relatively well. I think, Sydney was a little bit warm for what you would do for a marathon, and they made mention of it. I thought they had some good water stations to help you along with that, but agreed. I don't know that the hills were really over dominating or anything like that. There wasn't anything that you looked at that hill and like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with that? Maybe the very last hill, which was around kilometer 39 or something like that, when you're coming through the botanical gardens and you're dragging and you're trying to make it to the last little bit, because the last kilometer after you get through the botanical gardens, the last kilometer is probably the sweetest kilometer that you're ever going to run in your entire life, because it's this beautiful downhill through town, crowds streaming on either side, and it lands you right at the Opera House. And I'm getting chills just thinking about it right now, because it was like I was tired, I was hot, I was sweaty, everything, but it was just probably one of the sweetest kilometers that I've ever run, because it was just like so memorable, worth every hill that you could ever run.
How fun. So would you do anything different in your training, knowing what Sydney approached? Would you seek out more hills? Would you have done the same thing? Do you feel like you could have done anything different?
Here's the deal, right? Obviously, I'm going through and doing a lot of marathons right now. There's a difference between racing, running, and completing. I am on the completing end, and Akio is probably in the running side. There are other people who are out there truly racing them. And those who are truly racing them, get out there, run your hill repeats, do your intervals, be aggressive with it, and you won't have any problems with the hills. Similar, if you want to have a strong run and get out there, some hills, I would probably do a few more hills. For me, I was out there to enjoy the atmosphere, soak it in, complete it. I have a run walk strategy that will get me home every single time. So I don't have a concern at this point in my marathon career that I can't finish a marathon. Have I cramped at mile 18? Yes, of course. But at the same time, you have tactics. I have tools in my toolbox that I can use to get me across the finish line. So at this point, I would say no. Of course, I entered the lottery. The Sydney lottery's open. So of course I entered it. If it becomes my A race and I go after it, then there will be tactics and different things that I use to actually do a training block specifically for a hilly marathon.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. The different goals that you have for different races, especially for what you're running. And that was different than what Ayako had for her race. So that makes a lot of sense. Ayako, I'll throw it back to you. How is your travel over to Sydney?
So I actually had I flew from Sacramento to LA, because typically from LA, it's a little bit better in terms of pricing. And in this particular travel, I had a stopover. So I flew into Honolulu, and then, so there was one stop. And I actually thought that worked in my favor, because then you have a break in terms of your walking on the concourse. I thought it was better for me.
How long of a layover did you have in Honolulu?
It's like an hour. It was really quick.
So enough to deplane and then get back on. Is that correct?
It was just perfect, enough to get my legs stretched. And I did wear, what do you call the compression socks. I did do that. Not socks, but calf sleeves. I did do that. Yeah. In terms of, the travel itself, I was actually pretty pleased with everything. It was very smooth. Yeah. And we could talk more about accommodations and whatnot. But
Yeah. So when did you arrive? What day? So the marathon was on a Sunday. So what day did you arrive?
My goal was to arrive there on Wednesday, but because of the availability of flight, I ended up there Tuesday, I think. It was Tuesday early evening. And I was
Well,
front-ended.
almost Wednesday then.
Oh, yeah, it was almost Wednesday, but I
Yeah.
was also thinking about what else I wanted to do in Australia.
Mhm.
I didn't have a lot of time to take off. So I ended up being front-ended in Sydney, which meant that whatever I wanted to do in Sydney, I had to do it before the race. And so I actually did not plan what I was doing in Sydney until like a week or two before, because I wanted to know how I felt, all that stuff. And then I went chat GPT crazy and just started, trying to figure out what could I do? I just said, I'm running the marathon.
From that, front loading your touring and your tourism before the race,
Right.
how did that work out for you for the race? And in your mind, would you do it differently, or did everything work out okay?
I was actually very pleased. I thought it worked out really well. Yeah. So pretty much the first day I did probably the most physical activity, which was I did the Bondi to Conji coastal walk. Yeah. So I got to see another part of Sydney, which was great. And it was good because I got to ride the bus through by Centennial Park. So that was also good. My goal was to experience as much of Sydney as possible. So I did that. And then I also did the Blue Mountain tour. And again, people say, don't go to Blue Mountain because that's a lot of hiking. Well, I took a tour. So I'm on the bus most of the time. Right. And, got to pet the kangaroos and feed the cockatoos and see beautiful, beautiful vistas of the Blue Mountains. I also went to the opera. I thought, well,
Very
I'm there.
nice.
Yeah. So I went to see Carmen the day before. That was my kind of the chill out the afternoon before the race. Yeah. And then I did other things. Like I went to the expo. I actually went twice. The first day that it opened, and it was crazy. And I was actually very close to the convention center. So I think the day on Saturday, I also went again to see if I could get a merch that I wasn't able to get on the first day. And I was successful.
And so where did you stay?
I stayed in it's a chain called the Marathon Suites. So what I was looking for was a place with a kitchen, either an apartment with a kitchen or a hotel with a kitchen. And actually, Sydney has quite a bit of those to cater to business people. I stayed in Haymarket area, which is right on the southern end of CBD or Central Business District. So very close to Central Station, the light rail. Like I said, very close to the convention center. It was a great location. The place I stayed I thought it was great. It was just huge.
So it was easy to get to the convention center where the expo was held. How was it in getting to the start line and then after you finished getting back?
Again, very easy. I'll tell you, even getting from the airport and getting into Sydney, super easy. I mean, I just hopped on the train from the airport to Central Station, walked 5 minutes to my hotel. From there to get to the race, another 8 minutes to the metro station. And the metro station took us up to North Sydney, Victoria Crossing. So super convenient. And also, if I wanted to get up to is it Victoria Quay or K, where the Sydney Harbor is, there's also a light rail that was right outside my hotel. So the public transportation in Sydney is just fabulous. It is fabulous. Oh, another couple other things I did was I took the ferry a couple times. So I took the ferry up to Manly. Also, as part of our Blue Mountain tour, we took the ferry downstream from the Sydney Olympic Center train station down the river. So I got to see a lot of the upstream Sydney, which was, again, beautiful. I was so pleased that I got to see so much of Sydney before the race. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you packed a lot in.
I did. But, like I said, I would try to keep off my feet as much as possible. And then I also, running was great. It was not that far from my hotel to the parks, like the Hyde Park, which got me up to the Botanical Garden. So I didn't have to run through the city too much. I could just run through the parks. So again, very convenient in the morning. And it was a great way the few days before leading up to the race to get really pumped up, running around the bay or by the Sydney Harbor and around the botanical garden, because you run into so many people doing that. I did not run into Kipchoge, but I ran into a lot of people.
Worth a try, though.
Oh, I did. Another thing too. Sorry, I don't mean to say a lot, but one of the things that really helped me prepare for Sydney was very early on. I got on the Facebook. There's a group called the Sydney Marathon Support Group, and I highly recommend it. The administrators for that group, they were just posting so many fabulous information about Sydney, about how to travel to Australia, what airports, what to do before the race, what not to do before the race. They would say the zoos, if you want to go to the zoos, well, don't go to that zoo because it's too hilly. So, wait till after the marathon. They, had a whole Excel spreadsheet on all the shakeout runs that I did not end up doing. But if I wanted to, there was a bunch of shakeout runs all through the week. I could have gone, things like that. So that was invaluable information.
That's a great tip. That is really wonderful. Chris, I'll throw it to you. So first of all, how was your flight over? Would you do anything different with it? And then we'll lead on from there.
So similar but different. I too flew out of LA, but I took a direct flight from LA to Sydney, which is about a 15-hour flight.
15 hours.
It wasn't that bad. Again, wear your compression socks, bring your sound canceling headphones, things like that. Just get comfortable in your seat. And before you know it, you've watched 3 or 4 or 5 movies or whatever, and you're in Sydney. I got there Tuesday morning, early 7 a.m. I didn't really experience any jet lag, maybe a little bit. A lot of those mornings I was getting up at 3:30, 4 o'clock, which is similar timing to when I was getting up anyway. Living in Phoenix, in order to get your runs in the morning, you have to get up before the sun regardless. So I was already getting up at 4 o'clock most days, 4 or 5 o'clock. So I didn't really feel like I was impacted by any jet lag doing it that way. I was staying with a friend and saw a couple of the colleagues. So I didn't get out and do as much of the tourist stuff as Ayako did. I'm pretty envious. I did make it to Manly Beach, rode the ferry. Again, download the Opal app, which is the local transportation app. You can put in where you want to go in the city and it tells you take this bus or take that ferry or take that train, and it just guides you around. It tells you, oh, you're 2 minutes from walking here and then do this, that, and the other thing. It really is intelligent. So it's really simple to get around. Everything is tap. So make sure your credit card is tap, or you can link your credit card to your Opal app, which I did. And it made it very simple to go through the various transfers and the various stations to get where you wanted to go. The only thing I think I did different, that saw different, down by the expo, which is in what's called an area called Darling Harbor. Darling Harbor, there's also a little aquarium and a little zoo that I went through. There's also the Maritime Museum. And so being former Navy, had to go to the Maritime Museum, walk through the museum, but then you also got to walk to the ships that were all lined up there in the harbor. There was some big steel ones. There was some big boat, some big wooden ones. There's some smaller wooden ones. Very passionate, people who are working on them, telling you all about the history. It was super interesting to be able to see all that. I will say similar, going out on runs. There's a lot of different places you can go run. I did run into Elliot.
You did?
Yeah, I got lucky. Wednesday morning, down with a group. We were there when he came by the opera house with his entourage and a bicycle and everything. It was pretty awesome to see him up close. He's not a big guy, right? So the reality of it hits, but just, his whole group, and they ran past and everybody, the crowd was buzzing. It was pretty neat. So
did you get a quick shot of that, of him going past, or?
It's blurry, believe it or not.
Shocking.
It wasn't a great shot. Other people got good shots. But yeah, it was good that I got to see that. But I think there was a few different, and I think I was on the same Facebook group because there was a whole bunch of shakeout runs being posted. The one that I was fortunate enough to go to was Kofuzi was there with his with a few of his other folks and went to a shakeout run he did in Hyde Park. I think that was Saturday morning. So that was pretty good. But yeah, all in all, it's 5-star when you start thinking about how easy it is to get around town. The people are great. The food is awesome. If you love seafood, I hit up a couple sushi places and fresh seafood galore. Just a great experience.
Now, where did you end up staying?
So my buddy's apartment actually overlooked the bridge on the North Sydney side. So the morning of the race, I only had to go down out of the apartment over to the train station and take one stop up. I was already in North Sydney, so not really a big deal. And when the race was over, it was probably I could have done it two different ways. I could have gone down to the ferries and rode the ferry directly across and just walked up, or I opted to go over to the train, and it's one train stop across the bridge. Again, pretty simple, straightforward to get around, whether you're talking the beginning or the finish of the race.
Well, that's great. That sounds like it worked out for both of you really well, where you stayed and how the logistics came out to be. Let's turn to the race, and specifically, let's talk about some strategies that we used for fueling, and let's also talk about what you found as far as the water stops and how they were run and what went on there. Let's set the tone first. Sydney was a hot day, so it was a little bit warmer than what most, and a little bit unseasonably warm for them, and I'm sure just a little bit more humid than anyone wanted it to be. My understanding was it was fairly windy few days before, and then it calmed down for the race itself. That helped, maybe didn't help a little bit. So, Chris, what was your strategy for fueling, and did you change anything during the race due to the conditions?
So I think probably the thing that I've adapted to the most recently, especially on warmer races, is carrying your own bottle. Everyone seems to have angst or some complaint about water stations being too busy. I just work around that with carrying my own water bottle that has my own electrolytes in it. Most of the water stations that, for a lot of marathons, they will help you refill your bottle anyway. So when you get down, you can refill, or you can just use the cups from there on out. That's fine too. I think the one strategy that I always use for, especially these larger races, people have a tendency to dive for the very first table of water. Don't do that. There's usually 8, 10, 12 or more tables of water. Be okay running around and getting down to the later tables. It's the same water. It's just as good. And now you don't have as many people around you that are tripping you up, stopping in front of you, those kind of things. So be okay with that.
Did you find that there were plenty of water stops that you could easily grab a cup?
Yeah, I didn't have any problems with, the number of water stops. Again, I don't think I really noticed the heat, or the heat really wasn't impacting until about halfway. That's when it really started to become apparent that, this wasn't going to be any land speed records or anything like that. And you needed some extra hydration, both for inside as well as dumping over your head. Totally acceptable for those who haven't done that. Keep cool. Grab a couple cups, dump it over your head. But I think the whole idea is that, as the sun was beating down, there wasn't a lot of concern around direct sunlight. There was a few spots that were unshaded, but a lot of it, because it was either amongst buildings or in the parks, it was pretty well shaded. The wind, there wasn't a lot of wind. It was a little breezy on the bridge coming over. But again, because you're in these protected areas, there wasn't wind, and maybe that was to the detriment that there wasn't really a breeze blowing through there at all. I never noticed it anyway. So you didn't really have any refreshing breeze, but you also didn't have a breeze, beating down on you and slowing you down that you had to work through.
Very good, very good. And did you use gels during your run, or
yeah?
I
always pack about 8 gels. And I just use the regular goo gels, except the ones that I use are the watermelons that have the extra sodium, magnesium, and potassium, all the good things that you need to make sure that I'm a heavy sweater. I tend to get salty if I don't have enough. So I just continue to pack those on. And I'll usually go through 6 or 7 of those before I get tired of having those. Rarely do I get through all 8. But I always want to make sure that I have enough of those as I'm going through. And I'm usually doing it by time. So every 30 minutes, I'm just looking at my watch and keeping track and taking another one. The one thing that I started doing, because I do run on the trails every once in a while, packing out my own trash. Just save a pocket, put your trash in your pocket, be okay with that. You don't have to be like everybody else and throw it on the ground. Take the gel.
Yeah, there's no need for that. There's no need, and you can even time it with the water stations. They have plenty of trash cans there.
Totally.
And if you're close to it, just hold on to it, then toss it in the trash can. There's
Yep.
no need to throw it on the ground. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Ayako, I'll turn to you. What was your race day strategy, and did you have to change your strategy due to the conditions?
So I usually have a set strategy of taking I use precision hydration for carbs every half an hour. I do carry my own water bottle. I have it with electrolytes. I decided for this one that I was going to start out with the water stations. I think they had water stations every 2 kilometers, if I remember.
Sounds about
It was
right.
pretty frequent. I did not find them crowded, perhaps because I was in the third wave, but I did the same thing as Chris. I don't go to the first table. I usually kind of move further down so that I could, there's no people. I think my detriment and what contributed to my calf, what do you call it?
Cramps.
Paralysis. Yeah, calf cramp was, I think in the midpoint, I stopped taking the water from the water stations because I still had, my bottle felt pretty full. And so I thought, why don't I just drink from this? And I think that was something I should not have done because that's when the cramp started. So I think my lesson that I learned was always take advantage of the water stations. So it's one way to kind of slow down a little bit and, while you're drinking and then kind of, be able to speed back up, so that was my mistake, I think, that I didn't use the water stations. It was a little curious. I do recall, and I don't know, Chris, you saw this, but there were some water stations that were not even manned at the end, like around Centennial Park. After Centennial Park, it was just this table. There was a lot of water. So I filled up my own water bottle, but nobody was there. It was kind of a little strange for a major marathon. But that was the only thing that I noticed differently. Oh, there was through Centennial Park. I guess every year there's a table that offers those paints. Is it paint away the sprays where they were spraying?
Right. Yeah.
I do want to make a note of that because I read in Facebook later that for some people that triggered asthma because the
aerosol that they use.
Yeah. So if you have asthma, then just be careful of that. I guess
so it's actually kind of a washable spray paint, if you will, that they're spraying out there. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it wasn't a spray paint or anything. It was just like a spray on sports relief, muscle relief.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Do your legs hurt?
Almost,
that's usually the sign next to it. Like, do your legs hurt? And it's like, oh, pull over and
people said it worked great.
Analgesic.
Yeah, people said it worked great, but then other people complained that they started up their asthma. So just beware of that.
That's good. That's a good point. And I've noticed that a few majors have started doing that as well. I remember there's a biofreeze corner in Chicago.
Yep.
That you can literally run into the corner of it and get rubbed down with biofreeze and then take off again.
Interesting.
So Chris, you might want to take advantage of that when you head to Chicago.
There you go.
And Ayako, did you use any gels during your race?
So I used the precision hydration carb, and then I used the salt stick for my salt tablets. But after this race, I've decided to go back to what I used to use, which was the S caps. Has more sodium. It's cleaner. It's just a capsule, so I could just take it as opposed to sucking on like watermelon flavor. Sometimes that doesn't sit with you very well. So I've decided after Sydney to change out my salt tablets. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Very good. So finishing up, how did you find the finish and the corrals there? Were they easy to navigate? Did they move you along quite well? And was it easy to get out?
After the race?
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, I do want to say during the race too. Again, that was my first major, so I've never been in such a big marathon race, but I almost got tripped up by somebody just because there were so many people. Yes. So I've just never had that happen before where somebody's leg literally tangled with mine and I almost
How far into the race were you?
Well, we were pretty close to the finish. We were up there by, it was a group of ladies that were being followed by a camera. So I think they all wanted to get together to, be in the same shot or something. And so the one lady kind of cut in front of me and got her legs tangled with mine. And the saving grace was she pulled me up literally on my back on my shirt. So something like that happens sometime. It was a little bit irresponsible that they did that.
We can thank social media for giving us a lot of information and giving us quality information at times. And then there are times that it goes overzealous and people feel like they need to have this moment to immortalize their time and to the detriment of others.
Yeah.
Lack of better terms, there's no centeredness around that. This makes a race not so good for other people.
Yeah, could have been very bad. But back to your question about getting out.
Yes.
So the way they have it is you end up in the Royal Botanical Gardens. And so you're on the other side of, if you want to get this transportation back to anywhere you want to go. So Central K. So to get to that side, back to transportation, they only had 2 bridges going across the marathon course because the marathon course was basically was blocking. So the marathon courses go to the finish, north-south, basically. You end up on the other side. And so now you got, I don't know how many thousands of people on this one side of the course trying to get to the other side of the course and get over 2 bridges that they had. It was a little stressful for me because I actually had a flight to catch right after the race.
Okay, so you did something that I did in Chicago.
Yes.
After I finished Chicago, I immediately hopped on a plane and got out of there. So, and I don't recommend that to anyone. Tell me more about that.
Well, and the reason why I did that was because I wanted to go up to Queensland and I didn't want to lose a day. So I thought, okay, everything is pretty close, so I should be able to make it on this flight. I did not expect this issue of, just literally almost an hour to get across the marathon course to get to the other side, to the main city part. And that was a little stressful, but I got through it, and I just, I literally just jogged back to my hotel. It wasn't even worth taking the light rail back by that time. I just walked it and then I just picked up my suitcase and just went to the airport.
And what's nice is that you were close enough to your hotel where you were staying that you were able to do that.
Yes. I mean,
so your suggestion is give yourself plenty of time, and once you finish, that you're not going to make it out very quickly.
You're not going to make it out very quickly. Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense. And Chris, what was your experience after you finished?
Yeah, same thing. I agree with you. It takes a bit of time. They even have signs as you're finishing. They have signs where it says, I think the first sign says 500 meters to the recovery area. You're bottlenecked into this small path, and everyone, because of the beauty of the surroundings, I'll say, everyone wants to stop and take their picture with the opera house in the background and their medal. And you probably saw a bunch of those online. That's the area they did it. So you have a bunch of people who are either laying down and sitting, or they are taking pictures next to the water. And so your bottleneck is even more reduced as you're trying to get to the recovery area, where you get into the botanical gardens, walk up the hills a little bit to get your drop bag and a place to sit down. Because I went up there and I sat down for 15, 20 minutes to recover before walking out. And you had to walk all the way. For me, I walked all the way to I guess that's the south end of Hyde Park to do the same thing. You had to cross over to the other side, which took a little bit, and then over to the train where I was able to get back to my buddy's apartment. But it's not quick. Be patient. And I think that's probably the big thing, which is different, I think, than the beginning, because in the beginning, I thought the corral system was pretty good. So you get there and you get off the train, and of course the flood of people, they are all walking in the same direction and they're all trying to get to the same area. I think there was 3 different colors with 2 different waves inside of each color. When you get into these big, large areas, there's quite a number of, porta-johns or whatever you want to call them, kaibos in some areas. I don't know what you have for your local one, but it's a place to go to the bathroom. So there's plenty of that. Then they shuttle you into a smaller corral that doesn't have services before you walk out to the main area and then start the run. So there's a portion there where once you go into the corral, you don't have facilities. If you're like me and you have to go a lot, make sure you do that before you get into the corral. That's probably the one bit of advice, because once you get into the corral, you're locked in until you get across the bridge. I don't know that I saw something within the first 5K, right? So you had to get down a ways across the bridge, and then the first 5K at the first water stop, there was a handful of porta-johns there. But I think along the course, they did pretty well, especially by the time halfway came. There was a number of porta-johns that you could use, so not a big deal. But again, I think the beginning and the end are starkly different, where the beginning was pretty well organized. The end seemed a little chaotic and a little squished for the area. I'm not sure if they could get more people through there, because remember, I think it was 35,000 people did the Sydney Marathon. I don't know that they could get more, because you're starting to back people up. I think they really had to push people through there to get people to continue to finish and get them across the finish line, because it was starting to get really congested.
That brings up a good point, Ayako. How did you find the corrals and getting to your corral? Was that easy enough as well?
Yes. It was extremely smooth. Like I said, I took the Metro North up to Victoria Crossings. So people took advantage of the restrooms in the station, and there was a long line in the bathroom, but then I found out that you could actually backtrack toward the platform and go the opposite exit. They'll tell you you can't go out that way. That's not the way to the race. And you say, no, I'm just going to the bathroom there.
Uh-huh.
And I was able to use the bathroom. I just followed two other people who were doing this. So, and no line. So I used that bathroom first. That was my first. And then went up very smooth into the corral. And as Chris said, I didn't even find the lines that long. I just, was able to use the restroom there, porta potty there. And then once you leave though, and that was the part where maybe they could have given you a little bit more notice, because once you were kind of in that, what do you call, that narrow area where they start walking you down toward the start, and there's cameras, so you could see the elites on the screen, and then they have these fires going off. Mm-hmm. But then you are literally stuck in that, this, I don't know if that's a corral. Yeah, you're just literally stuck there for, I don't know how long, maybe 20 minutes, maybe longer. And actually the start line took me by surprise, because I didn't realize we started. Even that there was no big, I was expecting something more bigger to show that we're crossing the start line. I literally had to we're starting. And so that was a little unexpected. I didn't expect that from, again, a big race, but yeah.
It's funny that a lot of these majors, you definitely know where your finish line is, but that start line seems to always sneak up on you.
Oh, is that right?
No matter what, so far. So, but you get the hang of it pretty quick, I think. Just like you said, oh yeah, here we go. Well, guys, one last question for you. Is there any piece of advice that you would give someone, they say, I am going to run Sydney? What is your one piece of advice that you would give that person? Chris, I'll start with you. One piece of advice would you give someone going to run Sydney for the first time?
I think it really just depends on what you're trying to get out of it. Are you trying to get out a good time or a good time, right? Are you there to race, or are you there to complete and just soak in the atmosphere? I opted for soaking in the atmosphere. Take your time. You paid for this. I heard somebody say this. You paid for this. Why rush it? Be okay with, just enjoying and soaking up the atmosphere. That's probably my one piece of advice, is be okay slowing down and take in the crowd, take in the scenery. I really think it's like a once in a lifetime kind of opportunity. I hope to get back there one day. I don't know that I will, but yeah, that's probably the one thing.
Very good. And Ayako, what one piece of advice would you give an individual running Sydney for the first time?
pretty similar to what Chris just said. For me, I was like, wow, this is once in a lifetime experience. I've never been in the Southern Hemisphere. I've never been to Australia. I don't know when I'll ever go back. And so, whatever happened with the race, I just thought I wanted to make sure I enjoyed everything, the race, everything before, after, and, make it memorable. And it really was. I mean, the race itself, even when I was going through the pain, the crowd, and just, it was a beautiful day. Just everything was beautiful. I just felt so, just so happy to be there that, I had to walk a little bit, but that's okay. It's just like I was having so much fun just being there. And I think people should approach it that way too. And I also didn't feel so bad when I found out that a lot of the elites, Sydney is not where they get their best times. So, so I was like, okay, well, yeah, there you go.
There
So
you are.
enjoy.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. That's great. Now I'm going to ask one more, and this one I ask everyone, but I usually get a pretty quick answer here. So for both of you, would you run Sydney again?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Chris said that he entered the lottery. I'm starting to think maybe I should just go ahead and enter again.
I would make room in my schedule. I would clear my schedule and make room to go run it again.
Yeah.
Even if it was next year. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful course. One other thing about the course though, and again, I don't know if this is typical with other majors but I've never had this, a lot of, out and back, which I'm just not used to. The marathons I've ran were typically point to point. So
point to points or circles.
Or circles. So if I had to get used to that would be something like maybe run more point to point races, because that was distracting to me a little bit to see people going the other way. And there were a lot of those kind of out and back. If you look at the Sydney course, it's a very strange looking course. So again, some people it doesn't matter or it doesn't bother them. To me, it was a little bit of a mental thing. So anyway.
That makes sense. The one that steps out in my mind is Tokyo. Tokyo has several out and backs.
Really?
That. And but I believe, I'm not sure about New York, but I'm pretty sure that none of the others have the out and backs like Tokyo or Sydney does. So we'd have to double check that as well. So, well, guys, thank you. Greatly appreciate you taking the time to share your experiences and share your knowledge of Sydney. And I'm so happy for both of you that you got to experience its inaugural race in a major marathon. Good luck to each of you. Again, Ayako, you said you were getting ready to run the Marine Corps Marathon next, and then CIM just shortly after that. Is that correct?
Yes. And then I got into Tokyo. I mentioned that to you.
Oh, congratulations.
By general ballot. Again, by general.
Go buy a lottery ticket right now. Go win $1 billion because I think you have the luck.
Well, get ready for more out and backs then.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Something you might be able to do with the out and backs though is you might be able to catch the elites as they go back by, and that would be exciting to see them.
I was way behind that to catch them.
And Chris, tell me more. How can people help you out in your journey for all 7 stars with your charity?
I appreciate that. So you can find me on Instagram at @ChrisRunMore. That's probably the easiest place to go find me. There's a link there for collecting donations around the Organization for Autism Research and the Run for Autism team. And I'll be collecting those over the course of all the marathons where Chicago's next, New York in November. I too will be in Tokyo, hoping to get into Boston, but I will be in London for sure. And London will be, hopefully the completion of the 6-star/7-star journey.
That is fantastic.
And due to recording mishaps and herewithins, we were not able to get this recorded before Chris actually ran Berlin. So we're recording this after he ran Berlin, but a good successful race there. And hopefully we're on the 7 stars. So appreciate that. Ayako, where can other people find out about you and follow your journey?
I'm on Strava. That's probably the best place to find me, but yeah.
You just search your name on Strava. And Chris, are you on Strava as well?
I'm on Strava. I'm on Garmin. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Threads. I'm on X. You can find me out there. I'm there someplace.
All the same name?
All the above. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Well, guys, again, thank you very much for your time here today. and look forward to seeing you out there on your runs again. And we look forward to seeing each of you on the next episode of Major Reflections. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode with Ayako and Chris and their information they provided for you on the Sydney Marathon, and I hope it helps you on your journey. Are you planning on going to Sydney? Let me know in the comments, and let me know which major is next for you in the comments as well. Are you looking to become a better, healthier, and stronger runner? Then check out pbprogram.com. There we have a community that helps you to become the best runner and the best person that you can be. Again, that's pbprogram.com. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Major Reflections. Have a great run, everyone.